So I'm feeling rough. Feeling pretty bad. Hence the title. If you know the reference, you know that I had a podcast, kind of off and on, called Mentally Chill, and I wanted to talk about mental illness, and so it was like mentally ill, mentally chill. If that made sense. I think a lot of people interpreted it as like, you know, me being mentally chill, which I'm definitely not. I feel like poo poo, and I just wanted to get on and talk about it because it's important for me to share the ups and downs of being mentally ill. Because I know that I'm not the only one who deals with things like this. So yeah. So I just I like talking about it to a certain extent because it's important to me, and I really just want people to feel not so alone and feeling very alone, you know. And so I I don't know if I'm heading into another episode or what is going on. I know that I feel very rough, very drained all the time. I'm just hoping that I'm not going into another depression because honestly, the last one, oh my god, it sucked the life out of me. And then the switch flipped, and then I went into mania. If you don't know a lot about bipolar, it's called that. So major depressive disorder is often called unipolar depression, um, and it just means that you're on kind of one side of the fence, right? Where like you experience depression, but you don't experience any mania uh, uh, components to your depression, and doesn't mean that one is less awful feeling than the other, um, for sure. But so bipolar, what was formerly named um, manic depressive uh, disorder, um, is when you flip back and forth, or can flip back and forth between mania and depression, and oftentimes you go through this cycling motion where one will lead to the other, and this can go back and forth however many times, and it feels like your body's kind of being ripped apart, is the best way that I can describe it, because you think you're good, you think you're solid, you think you're set, and then boom, find out you're not, and you move to another extreme episode. And so you can experience like minor symptoms. So there's um, there's not just purely depression and purely deep depression and purely mania, right? There's levels and different severities to it. So you don't have to go necessarily into mania coming out of a depressive episode. You go into something called hypomania, which is a little less severe. You have a little bit more awareness. You can actually kind of see things a little bit more clearly. Mania, you put the blinders on and you just go full out bonkers. And I say that as someone who experiences it, and not as trying to label anyone else's experience from it. So, or with it. So, I I'm dealing with coming out of a manic episode and trying to keep myself as stable and close to baseline as I possibly can. Baseline meaning you're not experiencing depression or mania. Um, and I just feel off, and I feel like that's coming through in a lot of situations in my life. And I think I talked yesterday about there's just a lot of stuff going on in my life. And while bipolar is a chemical imbalance, there definitely is an environmental factor in swinging in mood, right? And, if like the whole world around you is going to shit, you're not going to feel super wonderful and great and surprised. But how you react might be depressive, or it might be manic, or it could be that you just feel bad and it doesn't have anything to do with your bipolar. Not every emotion you feel having bipolar disorder is a sign or symptom of bipolar disorder. Very important to note. So I just feel very off, and it makes me nervous, but I try to keep a state of mind where I don't do this thing, this, what do they call it? Cognitive distortion, where you kind of think the future. And so I tried to stay away from that if possible, because it can get me in a really, really bad place. I'm not saying, oh, I know I'm going into blank or blank, because I don't. And if I think like that, I will go into it. Or I will go the opposite way and go do something else, go into the other direction. And so we'll see, hopefully I can kind of get it under control a little bit, so that I'm not feeling so frazzled and a mess and just so exhausted. Something that I've talked about previously, but haven't recently, is the possibility of going into a mixed episode. And right now, my body kind of feels like it's in a mixed episode, but I'm trying not to label it to make it come true, if that makes sense. So, a mixed episode is when you experience both symptoms of mania, hypomania, or and um, depression. And so it really, like I said, it when things feel like your body's being torn apart, mixed episodes are among the worst you can feel with bipolar disorder, because your body and your mind is literally being split over and over and over again. It is physically painful. Um, and I don't say that as an exaggeration to make people feel bad for me. It actually feels like you're just crumbling, and it is a terrible, terrible feeling. Wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy, my first enemy. Them neither. And it just feels really bad. Um, and it's a really concerning state, because it can put you in a lot. It's not as dangerous to others and yourself as mania can be. It's not as depressive as depression can be, but it is very concerning, because it's so uncomfortable that people can hurt themselves to try to get out of that position, if that makes sense. And um, I so I'm hoping that's not the case either. So not only do you have to deal with the extremes, but you have to deal with the mix of the extremes. And it's a very, very tough place to be. And if you like, even people who like the mania that they experience, which I'm not one of them, but even people who do like the feeling of having energy and feeling on top of the world, and whatever that mania can induce, even they hate even they hate mixed episodes. And so trying to keep the mindset like you don't know what's going to happen, you don't know where you are mentally, and you can um, you can get through this, is very like, it just doesn't feel as like attainable and tangible and real. And I'm really struggling to try to keep my wits about me, to let my body and mind make the calls for me, rather than my mind saying, you're definitely going into this position, feel this way. I don't know if that makes sense to anyone who has any kind of mental illness. Um, it's kind of like, the only thing I can relate it to is like having anxiety about getting anxiety. And a lot of people with anxiety disorders, like me, will get to that position where they're like, this is going to happen. I'm going to be so anxious. I'm going to spiral. I'm going to do this. Well, you get into that position. Well, you make yourself anxious through that. And then you've got to deal with those emotions. So you kind of have this self-fulfilling prophecy of you called it and now you're anxious. It's kind of like that, where it's like you try to stay in a, hi, Mary King. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Did you change your name? I don't think you're new here, but I think the name's different. But welcome in. I'm just kind of chatting a little bit. This won't be a long live, I don't expect. But I'm kind of talking about just kind of the mental state I'm in, which is not great. And if you saw my welcome back party, which is really just me venting about how bad treatment was. Okay, cool. I was like, I'm pretty sure I've seen you before. I like that name though. But yeah, so it's really easy to psych yourself out and put yourself in a position that you wouldn't have been in otherwise. And that's what I'm trying not to do really hard. But I'm finding it really challenging because even though I'm trying to just really focus on me, my mental health, staying stable, all that shit, even though I'm trying to do that, I feel like the world around me is going a little bonkers, if I'm being honest. And all of that is just really compounding onto my own mental health and my ability to stay sane and stable. And for that, I'm just really struggling to not just go off the deep end. If I uh, have the best way I can put it, let me see if this white matches. Nope, that is not white. That is green. Do I have a white nearby? I need to add some white to this trans snake because it just doesn't look trans enough. Don't you hate when that happens? This is the snake so far. It's very cute. I'm happiest with this snake compared to the other ones, which they're very cute. I do like them, but I think I positioned the eyes upside down because I think it's supposed to be on this side, and I put them on this side. Like they're all kissing. This month has been bad for mental illness. Yes. And also, I feel like a little bit of every month. So I put one of these little pop things in my most recent bisexual snake. And so you can use it to pose a snake however you want it. But also, it's a great fidget toy. You can collapse it and then you can pull it apart. And it creates a fair amount of noise. The yarn does muffle it, thank goodness, because it's so loud. But it's a really fun toy to play with. I've seen these in treatment. I got a pack of 52 that came in multiple colors, and I'm gonna use them in snakes because it's cool and I like it. but I don't really know what other projects I would put these in. I feel like they would be good in other projects, but I can't quite figure out what. And I don't know if I could cut them and get the same thing. Yeah, I have to admit, I did not come up with this. I posted a video in Army of Weirdos on Facebook, and someone else thought of this, and I was already making this little non-binary snake, which does not have the tube in it. It's stuck with polyfill. Which I still love, but I like multi-purpose projects. So like the fact that you could have like a little snake that's really cute, and then you could also have a fidget toy is really, really cool to me. And it also, even if you don't use it as a fidget toy, it does help pose it. So yeah, of course, I'm super happy about it, but you know, this is what it is. Why can't I find any white yarn? I can't stand up because I'm still wearing those sheer ass shorts. Let me see. Have anything within reach? I'm gonna turn my camera off so I can y'all don't get blinded. But I'm still here. I'm just getting some white yarn. Okie dokie. Let me grab this. But yeah, just really struggling with like feeling normal and getting back to a state of like, okay, I can do this. This will be fine. Do. I'm just not really feeling super positive, and I know I need to switch my mindset, or it could be pretty dangerous. And I don't say that lightly because bipolar disorder is a very dangerous disorder. Um, and I just want to make sure that I'm taking care of myself as best that I can, especially just coming out of treatment because, I'm at like a very vulnerable point where I could, um, go into a bad place. And so trying not to be like, hey, you're going into a bad place is very difficult. I know a lot of people are struggling. I know there's a full moon coming up. And whether you believe it or not, I mean, the statistics show that people tend to not do well on full moons. and and so there's one in Scorpio, I think on Tuesday, and I wonder if that has anything to do with anything, but probably not. Just because it usually happens. Oh, you have bipolar as well? Oh, I'm so sorry. It sucks. It sucks so much. Yeah, I just got out of treatment for a manic episode. Right before that, I had a really bad depressive episode that lasted like 2 months. And then my manic episode lasted for like 9 or 10 days. And I was delaying going into treatment because I've been a little stubborn with trying to get other health care. I guess it's not stubborn if it's like, you've got reasons or whatever, but I haven't been necessarily getting the care that I need when I needed it. But once I went into mania, I was like, okay, can't deny this um, anymore. It's imperative that I go in and seek help because as bad and deep as depression can get, mania is a whole different animal. And I don't know if you experience mania or hypomania, but holy shit, it can be so damaging to your relationships, to literally everything. And so I knew I had to go get treatment then, and so yeah, I'm just coming off of a manic episode, and I'm feeling that itchy, like unsettling, like lots of energy, trouble sleeping, low appetite, but I also am feeling like depressed and hopeless and no energy at the same time. Like I'm energized but have no energy, and I'm like, I don't want this to be a mixed episode. So like all of those like conflicting emotions, and then like I feel like I'm saying like a lot, but it's my filler word. Let me have it. If I'm not on my meds, I can get me too, Mary, because oh my gosh, manic Ian is a whole different beast, and I hate being that person. I don't want to be that person, but also I just like you get to like I always say like mania, you're not at the wheel anymore. You're not driving. You are not making the decisions. Your brain is having a total meltdown. But for some people, it feels good. For me, it doesn't feel good. I've never been one of those people who like enjoys mania, but I also really struggle to know when I'm in a manic episode. I have just like very little awareness about what's going on around me, and it just makes it 10 times harder because I don't know that I need help. Luckily, with this manic episode, I was very self aware, which does not usually happen, if I'm being honest. And I was very self aware and knew that I needed help. And so I went to the hospital pretty much as soon as I knew for a fact I was in a manic episode and not just whatever. Yeah, bipolar is very difficult, and I know a lot of mental illnesses are. Um, so I don't want to ever like negate or invalidate other people for their struggles with mental illness. Um, but of all the conditions I have, the things that have been most damaging to my relationships with other people, um, until they say, yes, exactly. I need the people around me to be trustworthy so that I can get a more accurate feel of what I'm doing. And if they don't know I'm manic and they just think that I'm being a huge piece of shit, then then it can be. I've gone months with being manic and literally had no one checking me. They just thought I was in like a weird bad mood. And I'm like, I was sleeping 2 hours a night. I didn't eat anything, all of this stuff, and you're telling me, like, how? Sometimes I'm like, how did no one notice? But like, it's not everyone's, responsibility to constantly like check you on like your emotional well-being and whatnot. I know, but yeah, I like the thing is, a lot of the manic symptoms that I experience to a degree in when I'm not manic, like impulsivity because I have ADHD and um, snapping and being kind of mean and things like that. Like I have that already, so it's hard for people to tell when I'm manic sometimes, which obviously makes things more challenging um, for the people I'm around. But I do try to be as self aware as possible. So I found out something really interesting, and I will tell you in the hopes that it does not make you panic. Um, if you need me to stop talking about it, I absolutely will. But but I watched this really fascinating video, and I'm gonna try to find it. But it was called "Solving Bipolar Disorder," which of course that title was like, I gotta check that out. Um, but it's by a psychiatrist. Um, and the end got like way too scientific for me, if I'm being honest. And I love the science of bipolar disorder and other disorders, but the end was just like, here's all the neurotransmit like neuroreceptors, sorry, that get affected and stuff like that. And I was like, no. So that's a really good video if you want to watch and learn more about it. They also talk about the history of lithium, which I found very fascinating. Um, as someone who has been on lithium for a very long time, um, but but being manic actually can cause brain damage. And again, if this makes you nervous, if this scares you, you don't have to watch it. But I found it very fascinating because, when we think about mania, that's thinking about a mental illness causing brain damage is pretty far from our minds, right? But basically, what happens is when you're in mania, um, your neurotransmitters are like on high alert all the time. And what happens when they're on high alert all the time is that they can become overactive and die. So you can actually have neurotransmitters die, which is brain damage. Things are dying in your brain damage. And so the part of your brain that they target, I forgot what exactly the structure is. I always want to say hypothalamus, but that's not right. Um, but it's a part of your brain, and they it's involved in like self awareness, and this happens especially to people who don't know that they're bipolar and get diagnosed long after they've experienced symptoms. Also, people who've been diagnosed for a long time, um, and whatnot. So they so they've shown that parts of your brain can can die, and it's about self-awareness. So you have mania, you're not super self-aware to begin with, but then that mania makes you even less self-aware in the future, which is why maybe you recognize something is wrong very early on in your diagnosis, but then through time you start realizing it less and less and less. um, for me, this was a very interesting video to watch, as someone who's been diagnosed for like 17 years, because all of a sudden things started to make a lot more sense, and I found it really valuable. Also, having a clinician talk about it, um, rather than reading like the horror stories on the internet, I found very helpful because um, it it's a pink one for this actually. Because it was very clinical. It was not judgmental. It was not. It was just. It was like, okay, 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 yep, makes sense. Okay, yep. And so it was a very interesting video. If you want to watch it, I would highly recommend it. It's probably one of the best bipolar videos I think I've ever watched, and especially one that focuses on like the condition of mania rather than the results of mania, because people are like, oh, you're out of control and all this stuff, and people get into that mindset when they talk about mania, and it's like, well, yes, but like what's happening, what's going on. And so I found it very interesting, and it actually has led to really positive results for me, being able to discuss things with my psychiatrist. Like one thing, um, so I was on a fairly high dose of lithium for a long time, and then my doctor started taking me off of it because she was like, well, it's not working, so like, we need to try something new. And I was like, yeah, okay, fair. But then so lithium has a unique property that I think he said that uh, no other mood stabilizers have. And part of the reason why it's such a go-to for people, especially people who experience mania, is that it actually has a neuroprotective quality that that can help people who experience mania, um, like not have that damage to their brain. And I was like, wow, that's insane. That's very interesting. So I found it very interesting. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. I always try to insert it a little bit partially expanded, but it never actually works. Let me pull this out a little bit and then try to stuff this snake. Dealing with over 25 years, then they give a name for it. Nothing bother about the teaching. Exactly. I've done so much research on my own, and have had very little formal, like from a clinician's standpoint, education around the complexity of it, and going through different. I got to a point where I was having, I am having such severe symptoms constantly that I just was like, okay, well, no one's really giving me an answer, and I feel like there's just something we're missing here. I was going through med cocktail after med cocktail, and it just wasn't doing what it needed to do for me. So I started doing research on my own, and I found this video, and it was so enlightening. So when I watched this video, and my doctor's weaning me off of lithium, with lithium having these neuroprotective qualities that can reduce further damage to your brain, I was like, hey, I saw this. The lithium has some really good qualities. Obviously, lithium has some very bad side effects. Um, and that's one of the things they have to check for. But um, I so then it was depression, anxiety. Yes, bipolar disorder is both insanely underdiagnosed and insanely overdiagnosed. It's pretty wild. But yeah, if you want to find out more information, for me, it's been very helpful in talking to my psychiatrist about it. And so now, while I'm not on a high dose of lithium, I'm on just enough where it can have those neuroprotective qualities, but it's not my main mood stabilizer. I'm actually on 3 mood stabilizers right now. Would not recommend, but if you need it, you need it, right? Okay, I can't get this motherfucker. Actually, it's in further than I thought it was, but it's just what someone said. I don't know. I should have inserted it sooner. It's a learning process. Now I'm on seizure medication. Yeah, I'm on an antipsychotic or anticonvulsant as well. Um, let's see, what am I on right now? I was on Seroquel for a while. Now I take Seroquel as my downer, like for emergency manic things. But and that was really helpful. However, when I was on it full time and taking it as a downer, I did experience like severe memory issues. So now I'm just on it kind of as an as needed medication for any time I need like a tranquilizer dart in the ass, um, basically. And yeah, so that's what I use it for. And but now, what am I on? Am I on one? I'm on one. I can't remember though. Yeah, those tend to help, and honestly, whatever helps, you know, keep going, right? Right. So it's definitely a journey for a lot of people to find the right medication cocktail that helps. Something that definitely made mine more difficult was my concussion because it was relatively well managed before my concussion, and then after my concussion, it's just been like totally unmanageable. And like I've been in and out of treatment over and over again. But like right now, I'm just feeling so like I just don't know what's going on with my body, and it's very unsettling. I'm trying not to jump to the worst possible conclusion, which is me going into another episode or me going into a mixed episode. Oh my gosh, I hope it's not. But yeah, and like right now, I'm on the waiting list. I'm trying to get into a partial hospitalization program. I didn't want to do residential right now, but who knows, honestly. It's such a fucking tricky thing to get the care that you need because you just kind of don't know what's coming next. And like, I'm really glad you're here, Mary, because honestly, this is something that I feel like a lot of people have trouble understanding. Because a lot of people, when they think about mental illness, they're like, well, once you get on medication, there you go, things are so much better. And it can be true to an extent, but for so many people with bipolar, it's just a constant shift of medication to kind of adjust to where you're at. And also, is the side effects of some of the medications are so severe. Um, like for me, a lot of the antipsychotics or anti seizure medications, for me, a lot of them, I'll start to develop like a lip twitch, and this didn't happen until maybe starting like 2 years ago. But that lip twitch, that uncontrollable movement in my lip, can be a very early sign of tardive dyskinesia or TD. And if you don't stop that medication immediately, you can have those symptoms even after you stop, like for the rest of your life, and even if you stop the medication. So it's a very serious like thing you have to look out for. And for me, it was just really it's for some reason my body is just very sensitive to that. I don't know why. It wasn't always, but now it super is, and that sucks. But I hope you found a medication regimen that works great for you, that helps you stay stable. because honestly, stability is something that so many people take for granted, and I don't blame them for it. I don't blame people or envy. I do envy people, but like because stability seems fucking awesome, but it's just not the truth for me, and it's not right now, at least. And let's see if I can like extend this while it's in the thing. Why is this so hard? Why did I wait so long to do this? Trying to stretch out my stitches so I can stuff this guy a little bit more. So what I did, and I did this with this snake, but I also was like, okay, I guess there is like a little gap. Okay, maybe it's not the worst thing if there's a little gap. Okay, whatever. Good enough. And it's like the weather you can plan, but you just never know. Oh, that's a great, great metaphor. I love metaphors, and I will take that. Yeah, it's like, yeah, you try to have expectations, and sometimes you're just like, no. I think that a huge thing for so many mental illnesses, including bipolar, is having a good support system and having a good way to communicate with people. So it's like, if you can use that as a communication tool to be like, you know, when people are flexible with you and are understanding that, like, sometimes you can plan to be a good mood, but you actually just really don't know. And for me, that's kind of the situation as well. I'm really lucky to have people in my life who are understanding for the most part of like just this instability that I'm going through. I also am very fortunate that I, was able to get Social Security disability because, yeah, exactly. Medication adherence rate for bipolar people is so low. Hey, Winter. Just talking about having a potential mental collapse, but trying to get through it. Um, but yeah, medication adherence is so low. And yeah, I think it's easy, especially when you're kind of closer to like the manic side or even in a baseline state, to be like, oh, well, I'm fine now. I'm fixed. Like it happens, right? But that's not the case for most of us. And if we need that medication, we've got to take it. Um, when I was an inpatient, because I'm on a lot of medications because I'm really struggling since my concussion, and the psychiatrist was like, "Wow, you're on a lot of medications," and I was like, "Yes." Like, what outcome did you think saying that what was gonna change? Like, yeah, I know. I take them. I take a fucking handful of pills every day. You think I don't know that I'm on a lot of medication? Okay, queen. So it's like, no, it's not super helpful to tell someone they're on a lot of medications because one, you're stating the obvious, and two, you're kind of making them feel bad for having to take so many medications. If I didn't have to take as many medications or any medications at all, I wouldn't. But here I am in an inpatient setting because I was having a manic episode. I need those medications. Great support family. My family says, if you don't, if you don't take your meds, they aren't staying around. Honestly, that is a really hard thing to hear, but it's hard when you're in any state of mental illness to have, what was I going to say? It's really hard to hear that because you want unconditional support and you want to feel just like normal. And when people put conditions on that, it feels very, oh, like fucking stressful, right? Like it's very stressful. But but you is oh, all mental illness, like, they're teasing. Okay, well that's better, but still, it still would kind of affect me. I know if I heard that. Um, like I think that's kind of an understood thing with my family and with my wife, um, but uh, but yeah, I just like it's easy to be mentally ill and like be in a very selfish place where you're just trying to stabilize yourself it's hard to look at things from other people's perspectives. But when you do start thinking about other people's perspectives, you're like, okay, I get that, and they're trying to take care of themselves just like I'm trying to take care of myself. And that's fair. That's fair of them to want. Yeah, no, I totally understand. Um, but there are people in positions like ours that people aren't teasing. So that's kind of why I just said that. Um, yeah, and there's things you can laugh through, and there's things you definitely can't. So I think laughter is great for all people struggling with mental illness because we can get so in our heads that just quick moments of laughter and happiness really do make such a huge difference. I know when I'm in a bad state, I can't watch sad movies. I can't watch certain things. I can't intake certain information because it makes me so freaking emotional. So I just watch purely like funny movies, and I watch like lighthearted, sweet things. But I can't even watch like some of the Disney movies that have like deep moments because I'm like, oh, it's fucking me up. And maybe I'm a sensitive little bitch for it, but it is what it is. It does take the tension out of the moment. Yes, absolutely. And honestly, not making light of things, but bringing laughter into a situation that's not super funny, super fun, is very healing for a lot of people because that is something that can be, whether it's bipolar, whether it's depression, whether it's anxiety, if you can find a way to laugh and find any shred of happiness in the situation, whoa, big deal. Big fucking deal. So I do surround myself with a lot of very funny people, very good people that have my best interests at heart. And so they know when it's time to laugh and have fun. They also know when it's time to be serious and take Ian to the hospital. And that's what I need. Because if I felt like if I just received laughter or just like whatever all the time, maybe that wouldn't be the most appropriate response. So yeah, laughter is great, great medicine. Doesn't fix all wounds, but it does help a lot of situations. So Winter, I'm just making another little sensory snake. I made the bisexual one, and finally Nightbot decided to show up after 42 minutes. So it has a pop tube in it, and you can stretch it out, you can compress it, you can also use it to pose your snake. I saw that you were making snakes. I don't know if you use this pattern or not. But it's super fun because I made one without one, and then I saw that video that I posted on Army of Weirdos where someone put one of these pop tubes in it, and I was like, ooh, gotta try that. If you're wondering what I'm talking about, I saw the candy corn snake. So freaking cute. Um, so this is a pop tube. It's pretty loud on its own, so prepare yourself. So it expands quite a bit, and then you can push it back together. It makes fun noises, all that stuff. Oh, can't follow video tutorials. Understandable. Hey, you made a snake. It looks cool. Um, you can also like put them together and make like necklaces and stuff like that. Really fun fidget toys. They are pretty loud, so like I've like been playing with them and talking to someone in treatment, and someone was like, "Can you not be that loud?" And I was like, "Oops, sorry." But right now I'm making a trans snake. I added the white because the striping on this yarn is so inconsistent. I was like, it doesn't look like a trans snake if it doesn't have any white. So I took my own white yarn and added it. I have the bisexual colors, which I have to admit I'm not a fan of this colorway because this blue is not blue. It's fucking purple, and then the purple is very pink toned, and it doesn't show up a lot. So it's like it's bisexual, I guess. And then here's the non-binary one, which I did for trans day of visibility. So yeah, I'm just making the snake around the pop tube. I did have to change my hook size a little bit, and it took a little bit of trial and error. This one, I used 3 different hook sizes. I used, like, from here to here, I used a 2.75 millimeter. And then because I still didn't want the polyfill to show in the head, I moved to a 3.5 millimeter for the rest of the head. And then I was going to use the 3.5 for the body, but the tube doesn't fit in a 3.5, it fits in a 4. So for this one, I used the 2.25 up to here, and then I switched to the 4 for the decrease, and then the 4 fits the body. So I'm not sure it's my favorite way to do it, but it's something. But I'm gonna head out just because I'm kind of tired. I just wanted to say that I'm not doing great, but I'm trying really fucking hard to stabilize and get to a better place. So if I'm pretty inconsistent with posting, I mean, I've always been pretty inconsistent with posting, so I don't know what y'all expect at this point. But but yeah. So just if you want to know the pattern, I did post the pattern. And obviously, Winter, this is not for you, but I did post the pattern that I used when I posted the video on this channel about how I did the snake, and just kind of followed the video instructions. There is a written pattern that's paid, you pay for, um, available out there, but if you have something that you like, why change? Um, right, and I'm sure that there's lots of free patterns out there. But I love the pop snake because it makes it a multifunctional toy, and I love making fidget and sensory toys because to me, um, there's never enough of them. Everyone's got different needs and things that they like. And so going from just having a plush snake, which is very, very cute, and I'm not dissing on this at all, but going from a plush snake to a functional sensory toy, or even if you just use it to pose the snake, is very, very cool to me because I like to have a lot of function in the things that I make. Um, Even though just being a plushie, very cute, very comforting, and people do like it. So, different strokes. I was thinking about putting like beans or something like in the end. I thought that would make a cool like rattle effect, but but I didn't want them to get wet and like get gross. But Mel suggested using polyfill pellets, which I was like, "You're so smart. This is why I married you." Actually, I married her for many reasons, but she's very smart. So I think what I might do is like maybe take some like pantyhose if I have any. I never really wore them, so I don't really have them. But taking a bag um, and using a couple polyfill pellets to create like a rattle. I think that would be super fun. Because if I just put them in here, I don't know if it would have the same effect. I could try it before I committed, but I wasn't thinking about just putting them in there by themselves. But it's a pretty cool idea, and I'm excited to give it a try. I got a thing because I have some polyfill pellets because I was gonna make something. I don't remember what I was gonna make. Um, so I have some. They're pretty expensive, especially compared to like polyfill or fiberfill. But cool idea. I like them a lot. So I haven't used them, but I like the idea a lot. So I'm gonna give that a try and we'll see how it works. But I'm gonna let you all go, and I will talk to you later. Bye.